I want you to imagine a boxing ring. Thousands of fans fill the crowd. And as you walk out of the tunnel, you realize you're going to step in that ring. You're going to be all alone. It's just you and your opponent. Now, I want you to imagine it's 30 years ago, and you're a female boxer in a sport predominantly dominated by men. Now I want you to imagine for a moment, you're an entrepreneur, and you're in the ring of life, which sometimes feels like being thrown to the lions. My guest today has done all three of those things. The ring is a female boxer in a sport predominantly dominated by men in the 90s, and then as an entrepreneur. And if you can relate to the struggle, if you can relate to the fight behind being an entrepreneur, today's show is for you. EdTalks Live is next. Hey, what's up, party people? My name is Ed Rush, 5-time #1 best-selling author, your host for the most positive place on the planet for insanely implementable ideas. We are here Tuesdays and Thursdays, 10 o'clock Pacific, 1 o'clock Eastern, to give you entrepreneurial strategies to flat out change the world. My guest today is Alicia Doyle. She is the author of Fighting Chance. I'm going to be bringing her on to the show in just a moment. In the meantime, let me just say welcome to the show. We're going to have time today, hopefully at the end of the interview, for your questions, but get ready to dial it in, because on the show today, you're going to learn how somebody took the courage to step into the ring and how you do that on a daily basis. We're going to give you some ideas on how to do that better, faster, and stronger. Now, before I get into today's interview, I want you to go on the right-hand side if you're on YouTube, and on Facebook, that is right below you. In the comment section, jump in, tell me who you are, where you're from, what you do. I would love to just connect with you and tell you and find out what you're up to these days. So please do jump in. I'm going to be mentioning some of my friends in chat in just a moment. Now, before I get to the interview, just a couple things about what's coming up next. I've got an interview coming up this Thursday that's going to blow your mind. I've known James Donaldson for about 4 years now. He's a former NBA big man. Okay, so if you know the big men in the NBA, those are the guys that bang it out in the center. And James and I are going to do an interview this Thursday called Going Big, and we're going to have a blast, and we're absolutely going to rock it. Okay, so let me say hello to our folks in chat, and then I'm going to bring on our guests for today. What's up, Barry? Good to see you as well from the snow-capped mountains above the palm trees in California. What's up, Robert? Sunny California. Hello, Sali. Welcome back, multifamily real estate investor. So I'm going to read a segment from a book called Kid Gloves. And this is the prologue to the book. And I'm going to bring Alicia on in just a second. I think I can see, I'm just checking your stream. Alicia, I think I got audio for you, but not video just yet. So I'll be ready to bring you on here in just a moment. Hey, Sajid, good to see you as well. Welcome back from beautiful Chicago. Look at that picture of you with Tony Robbins, man. Awesome. All right. So in the boxing gym, this is from Alicia's book. In the boxing gym, surrounded by men, I broke out of my comfort zone to earn respect for my athletic ability. This task requires stripping away my femininity and the insecurities associated with being a woman in the world. I shed blood, sweat, and tears alongside of them. I worked twice as hard to prove myself before they accepted me as one of their own. The point is, and this is necessary to understand the difference between male and female fighters in the boxing ring, men take for granted they are men. Women never forget they are women in this masculine space where femininity and fighting is a paradox. Did you catch that? Femininity and fighting is a paradox. Boxing is described as a noble art of self-defense, the sweet science, a channel for courage, determination, and self-discipline. Boxing combines athleticism with skill, strength with artistry, and those who stay with boxing learn important skills for life: focus, heart, and dedication, and how to get up when knocked down. I never expected boxing to infuse my psyche emotionally spiritually and mentally, and put me on a path toward enlightenment. To this day, the skills I discovered in the ring translate to everyday life. I learned that the fight starts from within, and when faced head on with conviction, honesty, vulnerability, and faith, the battle is sublime. All right, so in a moment, I'm going to be bringing on our guests. In the meantime, jump in on chat on the right-hand side on YouTube, on the bottom on Facebook. I'd love to just interact with you and say hello while my guest is getting her internet set up. What's up, Frank? Good to see you as well. He said, Ed Rush 2020. I love it. All right, so I think, well, I just saw my team member, Delisa, jump on and then jump off. So I think they're working on the technology in the background. Let me just pause for a moment and just talk about just a few of the things that are just happening right now, as I usually do sometimes here as I usually do sometimes. Did you say that? As I usually do sometimes here in the beginning of the show. And then as my, check this out. Barry said, I've directed and boxed many boxing and MMA events over the last 20 years. Women. So I was telling Alicia when we were just talking before the show, I started taking boxing about a month ago, which, by the way, is a very difficult sport to master. So I started taking boxing about a month ago, and then my daughter was asking me, she said, Dad, could you teach me how to punch? And I said, yeah, I'll teach you how to punch, but why don't I just take it to the class? And if I take it to the class, then you're going to learn. And not only is she doing great, but I'd say about 3/4 of the people in the class are actually women now. Some great, incredible boxers that are in this. And after the first day, my daughter looked at me and said, Dad, I can't believe I know how to punch. So I thought that was really cool. And by the way, for those of you who just joined us, my guest today is Alicia Doyle. We're talking about fighting chance and how to accomplish anything. And we're just solving some internet issues on the back end here. So we're going to get to the interview here momentarily. But before we do that, let me just kind of pause for a moment. And I'm going to catch you up on some of the questions that I've been getting over the last few weeks. So as you know, just a few weeks ago, we had 6 days ago, we had a new administration here in the United States. And I will tell you, first of all, you should know I'm not a Democrat or a Republican. I have not voted for a winner in the election for about the last 16 years, okay? Because sometimes when you're not a member of either party, you don't win sometimes in elections, okay? So I don't have a dog in the fight in the sense that I am not a beholden to the belief system of a certain party or a particular viewpoint on that. With that said, of course, you guys know I'm in love with this country. I believe we are one of the greatest countries on earth. I don't think we are like any kind of divine democracy or anything like that. But I think we've done some truly amazing things with all of our faults and all of our failures. And so people have been asking me about, what do you think about the new administration? What do you think about the President Biden administration? And by the way, as a side point, you will always hear me speak respectfully of the President of the United States. Now, as it was with the past president and the one before him and the one before him, I always have given myself the liberty to disagree on policy and principle, but you will never hear me say an ill word against the individual itself. I said this back when in the beginning when people were literally trashing President Donald Trump. I said, look, disagree with the principles, disagree with the policies, but you be careful about what you do, and you're speaking against the commander-in-chief. And as a Marine, I knew that no matter who the commander-in-chief was, and by the way, when I joined the Marine Corps, the person who was there was somebody that I didn't vote for, okay? That is your commander-in-chief. So people say, what do you think about the new administration? I say very simply, I give them the benefit of the doubt. The moment they show up on day one, much like anyone who would come into work for you, like when somebody shows up in your office, whether or not they were your first choice or not, you say, you know what, I'm going to give them the benefit of the doubt. I'm going to say to this person who's coming to work for social media or video or whatever it is, I'm going to say to that person, you know what, maybe you weren't my first choice, but I'm going to go into this with a positive mindset and the benefit of the doubt. And I'm going to determine your success or failure in my mind based on you keeping your promises. And there were certainly quite a few promises that were made through the campaign, much like there always are. And I'm just simply watching to see if he's a person that simply keeps his promises. I'm looking, by the way, for a president who is both faithful and loyal. Okay. And I will just tell you those two things. First of all, you'll never hear me say an ill word against the office or the person. I will, however, talk about the policies. And I read all the executive orders, by the way, not in every single word, but I've literally gone through every single executive order. And I can tell you there's some stuff that I agree with, and there's lots and lots of stuff that I disagree with. Okay. So that's it for right now. I think our guest is still having a little bit of a challenge to getting on the internet. I'm going to just bring Delisa on because you're just going to give me an update here. I think you're on, or maybe you're talking to her. Can you just give me a quick update of what's happening with our guest, and then we'll get cranking? All right, maybe she doesn't hear me either. Okay, so let me do this really quickly. I'm going to just kind of shoot her one text. This might be able to help. Hold on. All right. Challenges happen. Welcome to 2021. Thank you, buddy. I appreciate your awesome comment. All right, so we got some time. If you want to ask any questions, you got one. We're gonna get this done. Don't you worry. For those of you, by the way, who just joined us, my name's Ed Rush. This is EdTalks Live. On today's show, we're talking about how to accomplish anything. I will be interviewing Alicia Doyle. That's going to be coming up as soon as the internet problem up in Ventura solves itself, which shouldn't be too long from now. Hang with me. In the meantime, I'm going to cover any questions that you might have. And we're going to talk just about a couple of things that are coming up over the next couple of weeks and some ideas that I've got for you. Okay, so without any further ado, hey, what's up, Diana? Good to see you as well. While we wait, oh, thank you. You know what? I'm going to start having to call you Mr. Producer, Barry, because this is where exactly where we're going. So last week, you'll remember we started a series that I'm starting to subtitle Goal Fuel, how to create fuel for your goals. Last week, I said there were 5 steps to accomplishing the goals and the dreams that you want in your life. The first step was to focus your mind on the things that you have. And then step number 2 is to train your brain. I'm going to give you a little hint. Maybe tomorrow or Thursday, I think it's tomorrow though, you're going to get your weekly flight brief email. In that email, I start talking about step number 2. And step number 2 is going to surprise you because the first step in mind control has to do with the people that are around you. All right. So without any further ado, here she is, ladies and gentlemen. I think she is. Hold on a second. You hear me okay? Oh, I lost her again. All right. Okay, hold on. Let me try. Oh, I love it. So if you, so as you now, okay, I'm going to take you back to the F-18 cockpit and just say, this in the Marine Corps F-18 fighter community, this is very normal. Okay, so things break all the time. Systems malfunction all the time. You still got to go to war and you still got to fight. So I think my guest is rebooting again. All right, so I'm telling you, we're going to get to this thing. All right, so in step number 1, for a little bit of a review on goal setting, step number 1, I said was to focus on the things that you do have instead of focusing on the things that you don't have. My theory, which I believe is going to become a law, is that modern goal setting fails because your attention is focused all on the thing that you don't have. So, for example, you say to yourself, well, I want to have $1 million. And you think, I want to have $1 million. 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 And you spend all your time thinking about the $1 million that you don't have. And at first, what it creates is what I call hopium, but eventually what it ends up with is discouragement because you're spending your time on the distance between those things. And my challenge to you last week was to spend your time focusing on the things that you do, starting with a simple step of gratitude, okay? The second step is to train your mind. I'm going to give you 3 steps on that. The first has to do with the people who are around you. The second has to do with a simple drill that I'm going to teach you how to do. And the third has to do with something that will blow your mind. And it has to do with this picture of your brain right here. Okay. Now, before I go deep into that, I think I've got my guest. Can you hear me okay?
I can hear you. Can you hear me all right?
Yes. So just like I was saying when I was flying F-18s, all of our systems, we would have these challenges. Things would drop. Things would come back on, and they would break. So hang on a second. Let me just there. Whoop. There we go. I got you back. So how do you hear me?
Now it's
on. You are on. All right. So
you.
take a deep breath. It's just like we're going into round 2 right now. And for those of you who just joined us, by the way, I'm here with Alicia Doyle. We're talking about her book, Fighting Chance, and her mission in the world. And I think I just lost you again. Do you hear me okay? I think we just lost her on the internet again. All right, here's what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna keep teaching goal setting as we get her on. There's been, if those of you who haven't been in California or haven't seen what's happening in California, the wind speed's only about 40 knots right now. So things are blowing over, knocking down, and such is life. All right. Thank you. All right. So he says, I love this subject. I've been in martial arts for over 30 years, international grand champion. The Black Belt Martial Arts Academy received multiple martial art honor award and lifetime achievement award, celebrity coach, #1 best-selling author. Dude, that is awesome. Well, Barry, California. I don't even know. I don't even know how to. This is great because you guys are just happy to watch this happen. You're happy to watch me try to adjust. Okay. You don't think I can talk for an hour. I'll be able to talk for an hour. So it is nice to see her. She will be back. California is becoming, I don't know how to say it and be nice about it. Sometimes it feels like California is becoming not just Ventura. I know things are beautiful out in Palm Springs. All right. So back to the teaching. So last week I said that the first step in goal fuel is to focus on the things that you do have, right? So I said you can look at the desk, be thankful for the desk. You can be thankful for, like, you want to hear an inside story? Remember last week I said I picked up my coffee mug and I told this whole story about how thankful I was for my coffee mug. This is in the mug I used last week. And I said how the mug was a squadron mug that Pam Hendrickson actually found for me and sent to me as a gift that I didn't even know that she knew about the mug that I had lost. And that day, I'm not even exaggerating, that afternoon, my kid was doing the dishes and he broke my mug. And I opened up I didn't even know about it. I opened up the trash compactor and my mug was sitting. I said, what's the deal with the mug sitting there? And he said, I'm so sorry, Dad. I broke your mug while we were cleaning the dishes. And I thought, isn't that interesting? I was just talking today on the show about how thankful I was. So this is the backup mug. Okay. And if you want to know, that mug is Abraham Lincoln. It's a quote from Abraham Lincoln. Okay. And it says, government of the people, by the people, for the people shall not perish from the earth. That's Abraham Lincoln. Now, I bought this mug at the Independence Hall in Pennsylvania. So if you've ever been to Independence Hall, you'll know that's where the Liberty Bell is. It's where they signed the Declaration of Independence. I bought this, and on the way home, I dropped it. I have some issues with mugs, right? So I dropped it, and it got cracked all around the edges. You can see the cups like cracked everywhere. And I thought, you know what? This is kind of appropriate because in our country, we have a great country. We really do. We have a beautiful, awesome country with an amazing constitution that is not perfect in any way, shape, or form. It was Benjamin Franklin, I believe, who said democracy is the single worst form of government. It's just that it's better than everything else. Okay. So with everything, our country has been battered and bruised, but the core principles are still there. We still are one nation under God. All right. Are you here?
I'm here again.
All right, cool. Okay. So here's the deal. I'm not even I got a great introduction. I read part of your book. We talked about getting into the ring. I read the 2 of the chapters out of your prologue. I didn't say this in the intro, but in the prologue, apparently, Alicia, you were called the Disaster Diva. I think that's a cool name. So now that we have you, welcome to the show. First of all, it is so great to have you. We've been having fun since then and only been adding new people to the show, by the way. So everybody's ready for you. So tell us your story. I want to hear the story about how you got into the ring and where you've been since then.
Oh, thank you. Yes. So I'm a journalist by trade. And how I found boxing, or should I say how boxing found me, I believe was serendipitous. I was alone in the newsroom one night and the phone rang and I was working on a story. So I answered, being the only one there. And it was a community activist asking for coverage for a boxing gym for at-risk youth called Kid Gloves Boxing. And the minute she said boxing, I turned off, because I used to view boxing as the dark side before I discovered what a beautiful sport it really is. So I told her I'd pass it on to a sports reporter, and he'll take care of it. And she said, no, you don't understand what the story is. The story is that this boxing gym, Kid Gloves Boxing, was destroyed. And this was back in the 90s. So this was during El Nino rain. So the boxing gym was completely flooded. And as a result, these at-risk youth had nowhere to go. And these were troubled kids, very troubled kids, a lot of broken homes they came from. Some of their parents might have been incarcerated. So they were dealing with a lot of really intense issues. So that pulled at my heartstring, and I went out and I did the story. And the moment I met the gentleman in charge of this gym, his name is Robert Ortiz, and I saw the size of his heart, I had to explore more, because I wanted to know what it was about this sport that made these children, these at-risk youth, better people. How could something that I considered so violent transform them from the inside out? So that's how it started, but I had not stepped into competition, nor was I even considering it at the time.
So your first step, this is fascinating, right? Because you see this sport, which bunch of dudes basically beating each other up, and it's not interesting to you at all. You get forced into this journalism assignment, and then you see this other side of the sport. So what did you start with? Like a class? Like, how did you get yourself in there? It's all a bunch of guys in the 90s, right? So how did you even find yourself like there for the first time with like gloves and shorts and stuff?
Mm-hmm. That's a great question, because I was reporting on this gym for about a year before I actually ever took any kind of boxing class at all. And Robert Ortiz had long encouraged me to take an aerobic boxing class. It's no contact boxing. You wear big gloves and you're just punching a bag. And I never took him up on it. But what got me into the gym that day to take that class was I was involved in a very volatile breakup with a boy who punched me in the face more than once. And needless to say, I was pretty upset about that. I was very angry. I was very ashamed. And all I wanted to do was to hit something as hard as I could over and over again. And so I thought, I'm going to go and take that class. So I walked into Kid Gloves. Robert had gotten to know me over the year that I had been reporting on him. So we could tell something was wrong, but I didn't reveal what had happened. I was just like, I'm here to take your class. So I took the aerobic boxing class and I hit that bag for an hour. And all I knew was that I felt better. It was a respite from all the anger and all the rage and how ashamed I was. For that hour when I hit that bag, that was all gone. And it was probably because that workout was so difficult that I had no room in my head for anything else. And so before I knew it, I was taking that aerobic boxing class, sometimes 3 classes in a row, 6 days a week. Like, that's how much rage and anger I had inside me. And every time I went and took that class for that hour or 2 or 3, those demons in my head weren't screaming as loud. And I thought, there's something to this. So that's what got me to take the aerobic boxing class. The competition didn't come until later when people started to approach me in the gym and asked me if I had ever considered competing.
There's a story. It was a USC fighter, a female fighter, 26-year-old fighter named Poliana Viana, who was in Rio de Janeiro. She was waiting for an Uber. A guy walked up to her with a cardboard gun in his pocket and tried to rob her. And he picked the wrong woman to try to rob. She just apparently he's like on the ground, completely knocked out, blood running out of his mouth. And I thought, you got to be careful who you decide to rob these days. So I thought, yeah, well, that's part of the story of understanding self-defense. So you went from, and I was telling you this offline, by the way, but my daughter and I have just been going to boxing class together. And after her first class, I told you this last week when we were talking, she came home and she goes, I can't believe it. I actually know how to punch, which I thought was so cool that she knew how to punch. And so I told her, I said, the first rule about winning a fight, I said, don't get in one. That was my whole first rule. So anyway, all right. So I think by the fact that hang on a second, I think I lost your feed again. We're back to Ventura, the third world Ventura country. So I'm going to take a I'm gonna take a pause real quick and come back. Bob, it's a great comment. Bob says, Ed can I might actually capture this, Bob, and I might have to put this on my website for a little while. Ed can talk about nothing for an hour, and you can get a lot out of it. And I honestly, Bob, I think I'm taking that as a compliment. I'm just not sure. I'm not sure. That can go a couple of different ways. All right. All right, we're going to step. I'm going to get you to step 3, dude. I'm going to get you to step 3. By the way, if you want to know I shouldn't tell you in advance. Step 2 this is it. Step 2 is train your brain. Step 3 is connect to purpose. Step 4 is to forget faster horses. Step 5 is to get moving. I shouldn't have told you all 5 steps because I'm going to be slowly revealing them in my weekly flight brief as it comes out every week. And so, by the way, for those of you who just joined us and you're like, what in the world is Ed talking about? My name is Ed Rush. We're on a show called How to Accomplish Anything with my guest, Alicia Doyle. She's having internet problems in Ventura. We're having a great conversation, by the way, which is okay. Those things happen. And you know what? If we don't get this done, I'm just going to have her on next week anyway. And we're going to rock and roll. So thank you, George Tolles. Ed, he says, your classic handling of technical breakdowns is so much more effective than a planned teaching board. You guys are the best. All right. Are we back? Are you with me?
Yeah. Sorry. Thank you.
Okay. Hey, here's the thing.
I don't know.
If this happens 5 more times, we're still going to have fun with it. Okay.
All right.
And I just told everybody while you were gone, I'm going to get this interview with you one way or another. So if we lose you today, I'm going to get you next week. All right.
Yeah. Thank you.
The world is not so serious a place that this should cause any of us stress, you or me or anyone else included. So let's have fun. All right. So take me back. Now somebody says to you, let's do this competitively. What does that turn? How did that happen?
Okay. So I'm taking the aerobic boxing class, right? And I'm so intense about it and I'm getting in fantastic shape. That was just like, a wonderful side effect. But before long, just the aerobic boxing wasn't enough. I wanted to learn real skills. And, there's fighters and champions in this gym all the time. And so I would watch them training and I'd listen to their coaches and I just started mimicking them. I'd watch how they skip rope, the techniques for skipping rope, hitting the speed bag. And then I'd go off in the corner and I'd do it on my own. And so I had done that for several weeks. And then I guess the level of training I was at, and because I trained very intensely, I was kind of known as the Rocky Balboa of the gym because of the way I dressed and I was really scrappy and I just worked really hard. And then one day a gentleman named Stan Ward, he's known in the boxing world as Coach, and he passed away last year. But he approached me and he just asked me if I'd ever consider competing. And I told him that it had entered my brain, but I really hadn't thought too seriously about it because nobody would take me seriously because I was a girl. And that's when Stan Ward informed me that women's boxing was getting really huge at the time, but there were also only a few hundred women in America who were competing in the sport. And he said, and back then girls were not allowed to box in the Olympic Games, which I just think is ridiculous. That was made possible in 2012 when women were officially allowed to box in the Olympics. So that was huge. But so.
I think we lost her again. All right. Like I said, if we have to do this next week, we're going to do this next week. I'm going to tell you a story while she's coming back on. So my mom is my mom is the best athlete I know. That's not an exaggeration. She is the best athlete I know. My mom, one day, I used to work at this camp of hers and I was in this bar and this friend of mine at night were trying to beat these 2 pool sharks over and over and over again. My mom walked in the bar having not played pool well ever and had not done it for probably a year and won the first time. That's how good an athlete my mom is in the Basketball Hall of Fame. My mom was the coach of a national championship team in the early 70s called Immaculata College. And they wrote a movie about her called The Mighty Max, which you may have seen. It was on Netflix for a while. It was a picture that was released by Sony. In 1972, women's basketball was coming out of an era where, this is no joke, the men, they would put 5 people on one side and 5 people on the other side, like the basketball that you currently see today. And they would play like normal basketball. The women, however, they would put, here's what your team was. You'd put 3 girls on defense, you put 3 girls on offense, and 2 of the players would go in between. Did you catch that? So you actually put 8 players on the court, 3 on offense, 3 on defense, and 2 went both ways. And the other team had 3 down there. So when the ball was down there were 6 girls basically sitting around doing nothing. And the reason why in the 60s and 70s, when girls played basketball, they put 3 there, 2 in the middle, is because they didn't think that girls could run that much without, hurting themselves or something like that. So I've experienced from like a really early age, this sort of like women, can't do it, but I think it's fun. Like my mom came out of that world and my daughter's boxing, so very cool. So anyway, if you just joined us, my name is Ed Rush. I am in the middle of a somewhat interrupted interview with Alicia Doyle. We are having wind here in California, and the internet is having some issues in Ventura, but no worries. We're going to get this interview done either today or next week, which is no problem. Barry says, unintended consequences. What fun. Ed still gives us content and such craziness. Thank you, Delisa. We are having a good time today. All right. So back to, I'm just going to kind of jump back into goal setting, and we're going to kind of bounce in and out of this topic. And if we get the interview, we get it. Otherwise, no problem. We're going to do it. We'll do it next week. And by the way, for those of you who just joined us this Thursday, man, I got a great interview coming up with my man, James Donaldson. Just a really, really great guy, an incredible human being that I've gotten to know personally, but also a great basketball player and a 2-time author and an entrepreneur, big time international entrepreneur. We're going to talk about that on Thursday. Okay. So step 1 of the goal fuel process was to focus on what you do have, not on what you don't. Step 2 is to train your brain. Now, training your brain actually is going to have 3 separate steps. The first step is the one that I started on last week, and it's the most unbelievable step that you never think about when it comes to training your mind. When we think about training our mind, people talk about positivity, about focus, and then oftentimes about meditation. In other words, taking your mind out of a conscious focusing state and focusing on the subconscious processing of your mind. I meditate all the time. This week, I've got a prayer retreat. During that prayer retreat, I will spend at least an hour a day straight in a prayerful meditation, okay? So meditation is very powerful, but I think the first step in goal accomplishing, training your brain, I think the first step has to do with the people who are around you. Jim Rohn, the famous Jim Rohn, once said that you are the sum of the 5 people that you spend the most your time with. You're the sum of the 5 people that you spend your time with. And when I heard that quote, it was back in 2016. I was just coming out of the Marine Corps. I looked around at the friends that I had, and I realized my friends were not going where I wanted to go. My goal was to create a business that generated 7 figures. My goal was to share a message that changed the world. My goal was to free up time to be able to have a greater lifestyle in my life. Those were my goals. I wanted to create peace and prosperity and wellness and freedom and joy. And my friends basically were hanging out with me because they wanted to drink my beer, okay? And so what I did was I purposely went out and I went to find people who were 7-figure entrepreneurs who had a mission of changing the world. Now, my network now is composed of people like that, people who have a mission and a passion, people who've written books and have platforms online and want to see the world change. But when I didn't have that, back when I had like a 6-figure business, I was after a network like that. And so you've heard the phrase that goes, your network will determine your net worth, okay? And so I realized most of my friends, nothing wrong with this, by the way, but most of my friends at the time were probably in the $60,000 to $90,000 a year range. I wanted to go to the 7-figure range. So I started to find people who had values like I did, who were making 7 figures in businesses similar to the ones that I wanted to create, and who were really pushing the needle in terms of performance. And this is important, who had a vision for changing the world. And as I built this network, what I realized is I started talking like they talked. and I started thinking like they talked, and I had a more prosperity approach towards things. And all of a sudden, my income began to change. Now, it wasn't immediate and it wasn't one-to-one. Okay. So it wasn't like it was an exact science. It had to do more with being around people, seeing how they operate, connecting to the people that they connect with, which creates more resource. And next thing you know, you're on your way to success. Okay. And it was that network that began to help me create that net worth. So one of the first things I tell people is if you're not accomplishing what you want to accomplish, one of the most important ways that you can train your brain is to be around people who think the way you think. So for example, you could spend 30 minutes in the morning meditating on prosperity. You could train your mind to think about the abundance in the world. That's good. That's really good. You could train your mind to think about gratitude. That's good. That's really good. But what if you spent like 4 hours a day with people who are going in that direction? That's better, right? Because a rising tide lifts all boats, and you begin to think like the people that you think with. Okay. So if you're looking around you and you think, gosh, man, the people that I'm with may not be accomplishing the kind of things that I want to accomplish, it may be time for some new friends. Okay. And I'm going to give you a process that I personally use and recommend to be able to do this. Okay. Now I'm going to pause real quick and just say, for those of you who may have just joined us, today is an interview that I was going to do with Alicia Doyle. She's having some internet problems. No worries. Okay. We're going to get this interview done today or next time, and I don't care. All right. Life is far too short for me to stress out about people, about internet connections. And look, oh well. Okay. So we're still having fun, and I'm talking about goal setting. So if you are here because you want to watch the interview, well, guess what? You're going to get it, but maybe not today. Okay, hang on. I got a text from her. Outage with AT&T. Okay, here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to tell her that it's okay. Okay. All right. So it's me and you now for the rest of today. So by the way, if you have any questions on what I'm going to cover, because what I'm going to teach now is just a few minutes, maybe 8 minutes or so, and then we're going to move it into any Q&A. And by the way, if you just joined us, we are shifting gears into this idea of setting and accomplishing goals. I should just say this as an aside. There are people who teach goal setting. I don't have an issue with goal setting. I'm more interested in goal accomplishing. Okay. So setting goals, I found sometimes can be frustrating because you have a list of things you haven't done and you may never do. Goal accomplishing, however, feels really good because, you know, you like do it. And if you do it, especially if your goals are income, impact, lifestyle, you make more money, which is great because then you can go shopping. Number 2, you impact more people, which is great because you can change the world. Number 3, lifestyle, you free up more time so you can have more peace and freedom. Okay. And I'm in the second segment, which is to train your brain. And my principal point is the people who are around you, your network determines your net worth. The people who are around you determine the kind of success that you're going to have in the world, not because necessarily of osmosis so much to speak as the way you think like they think, and they become resources. And remember, if you want to be a 7-figure person, being with 7-figure people are around 7-figure people, right? So if I've got 5 7-figure friends, my 7-figure friends got 5 7-figure friends. So if I got 5 of those, each of those got 5, I got 20 more 7-figure friends. They introduce you to people that they know, right? So for example, next week, I've got a promotion right now where Brian Tracy, some of you know Brian Tracy. Brian Tracy is actually promoting one of my products next week. So if you're on Brian Tracy's list, you're going to see this promotion that goes out to his list. I've known Brian for like 12 years. I know the guy that runs Brian's company really, really well. They're both in my network, and I'm going to end up doing a deal with them because of my relationship with them. Okay, so sometimes it's because of osmosis. Sometimes it's because of the network that connects you to that. Now, what do you do if you don't have that? Like, for example, I said my goal was to make 7 figures, but let's say your goal is to make it in the $1 million category, right? If you want that and the people that are around you aren't in that, well, you're like, wait a second, Ed, what do I do? Fire all my friends? I'm going to give you a process for this in just a second. But let me just say, first of all, it is important to be around people like you. It's one of the reasons why coming even into a show just like this is really, really helpful, because even in this community, right, into chat, you're connecting with people who are positive. And I don't know about you, but as an entrepreneur, it's sometimes really lonely. Bill Glazer, one of my mentors, said being an entrepreneur is the loneliest place on the planet. I mean, have you ever gone, like I do this sometimes, when I go to church, people are like, so Ed, what do you do again? I'm like, I don't know how to explain this. I talk about stuff. I mean, I was like, gives people ideas. Like, how are you supposed to explain what you do? That's why a lot of times what I just say is I'm an author. Like everybody knows what an author is. Okay. Sometimes they just say I'm an advisor to businesses or consultant. I mean, like it's really difficult to explain because as an entrepreneur, sometimes it's very lonely. Like, I mean, who are you going to share your success with? Right. There's barely anybody that you can share your success with because like, what are you going to do? Go tell your buddy that's making $60K a year. Yeah. I just cracked $1 million. Like, oh, I mean, like dude's going to ask you for a loan. Okay. So because it's so lonely, sometimes you need to be around people like you. That's why being in a community like this is super helpful. That's why if you're interested in being in a mastermind group, I have one. I've had one for the last 10 years that I host. These are high-powered, high-performing entrepreneurs. In fact, we have a meeting coming up in 20 minutes with my high-powered, high-performing entrepreneurs. These are people that meet every month, 3 times a year in person for 2 days, every month on Zoom to connect and see how we're doing. And sometimes just from osmosis, you learn from the people that you're around. Okay. So side note, if you're interested in potentially being a part of this year's mastermind, now is the time. edrush.com/coaching is the link. It's edrush.com/coaching. I do have an application process. It's a very short application so that I can get to know you, and you don't have to pay the full amount right away. You only to pay a deposit. That gets you a one-on-one call with me. Okay. So there's not an obligation like to jump in right away. Sometimes you just want to explore whether or not the group is right for you. And if that's you, edrush.com/coaching, put your application in the deposit. We do have a couple spots open, but not many. All right. So I'm going to get into the next, I'm just laughing at some of the chat. Rising tide lifts all. George says you're the, this George Tolles is I've only known George since I was like 0. I think it was 8. I think it was actually 8. George used to be the sideline announcer, PA announcer for the Seattle Supersonics back in like Jack Sikma days. Okay. And just been a really great friend and a mentor to my family. And he's also one of the best copywriters I know. So when he says things like Prince of Pivot, I'm like, oh yeah, that's good. We've been talking about how to change the world, George and I. Okay. So back to setting goals. I'm just going to do a couple more minutes and then I'm going to take your questions. If you have any. Okay. So setting goals is the big topic. We're in step 1 or step 2. Step 1 was focus on what you have, not what you don't have. Step 2 is to train your mind. All right. This is the graphic for step 2. Train your brain. The part 1 of training your brain. Did you catch this? Goal accomplishing or goal setting is the big category. Step 1, focus on what you have. Step 2, train your mind or train your brain. The first part of training your mind is who you're with, okay? So the process that I use is super simple, okay? And it's actually inside of 21 Day Miracles. So if you have this book, you can go to the section on the 21 Day Relationship Miracle, and you can get dialed in on this process. The process is super simple. The execution of the process can be challenging, but you got to take it the way that I teach it. Okay. So here's the process. This is about an hour commitment. Okay. It could be a little shorter if you have less context, but it's not short. Okay. So what you do is you open your phone and you open it up to the contact section. If you have an iPhone like I do, you click on the phone icon. Then you go over to the contact section and there's this whole list of contacts, right? Like, I don't know how many I've got on here, but it's a lot. Okay. So you go to your contact section. You basically scroll through like I'm doing right now. You just scroll through your contacts section. And what you do is you rate everyone with a 1, a 2, or a 3. Now, you don't go through every name because there's a lot of names in here that you have in your phone that were there, but you're not in a relationship with them. Like, for example, one of the names I just saw is one of the people that used to run one of the biggest basketball conferences on the West Coast. Was connected to her when my dad was actually as a part of that conference, but I haven't seen her for like 5 years. So people like that you don't need. The business associate here that I haven't seen forever, but there is one person here that I'm very close to just here in the Z section Okay. So it's not you, David Zetz, just so you know. But you're actually sitting here too, come to think of it. Okay. Now you take the people that you're in a relationship with, which is maybe a third or a tenth of the actual names, but you just write those names down. Anyone that you're connected with. Okay. Just write the names down. Family members, go there too. Sister-in-law, brother-in-law, go there too. The people that you're connected with, you just make a list. Okay. If you want to do this on a Google spreadsheet, that's how I like to do it. You just make the list of the people. Okay. And the second step is really simple. You give them a score. And that score is a 1, a 2, or a 3. Did you catch that? It's only 3 numbers, a 1, 2, or 3, because it's a very simple system. Let's go through the rankings. Reverse order, number 3. A number 3 is a person who brings you life. This is the kind of person, man, when you get a text from them and they're like, hey, you want to get some coffee? You're like, dude, let's do it. I love hanging out with this guy. Okay. Or I love hanging out with her. Like, they're the kind of person who you just really get excited about being around. And that could be a family member. It could be a friend. It could be a business associate or acquaintance. That's a 3. It's a person who brings you life. Okay. Now, a number 2 on your list, a number 2 is neutral. That's just a person that's there, right? You know what I'm saying? Like, it's not like they just bring you life, but they're not like a suck either. You know, they're just in your life. So that's a number 2. A number 1, though, is an energy vampire. This is a person who every time you spend time with them, you leave feeling frustrated or angry or discouraged because they sucked it all out of you. Okay. This is the person, you know what I'm talking about, who's got this perpetual unrolling toilet paper list of problems. You know what I mean? Like, once you get through one of their problems, they got another problem just because they need some attention from you. And you think you solve this next problem, and next thing you know, they have another problem. One of those people who, when you get a text, you're like, oh my gosh, I can't believe that I need to talk to that person. You know what I'm talking about, right? By the way, these people can be family members. Okay. So you're going to make a list. You're going to make a list of 1, 2, and 3. Okay. Now, on this list, what you're going to do is you're going to take the 2s. You're not going to do anything with those folks. Just leave them. They're 2s. The 3s, you're going to smile and decide, you know, I'm going to spend more time with the 3s. Okay. And the 1s, this is what you're going to do with. Okay. Now, I'm going to do this really quickly. I think I got you back. So real quick, what I'm going to do is I'm going to bring my awesome guest back on. Alicia, what's up? You back on? AT&T is cooperating with you.
AT&T is cooperating for the moment, but thank you for your patience.
Here's what we should do. Let's just do this. You want to just do this next week? Like, I'd love to do this when we can get an actual connection. I already said life is far too short to worry about internet connections. So why don't we just hook this up for, I don't know, let me look at my calendar. Let's do this while we're on, you know?
All right.
Oh, I got you. Take a look at next. Hold on. Let's see. Next. No. How about Thursday?
Yeah. What time?
You're on the 4th, baby. 10 a.m.
That's it. I got it.
In the meantime, go get some punches in. I'll get some punches in, and we're going to do it next week. And hey, here's the deal. No sweat. You know what I mean? Like, we're all good.
Thank you, Ed. You're pro. I really appreciate it. Well, I'm so looking forward to this. So,
all right. It's going to be awesome. And we're going to start right back at the beginning. And for those of you who are just joining us and you're like, what just happened there? I was interviewing Alicia. We had some issues. California's got some weather issues right now. And like Barry said, we're becoming a third world country, I think, according to what we were just talking about. Just kidding. But when you get the internet, we're going to come back. We're going to do the interview on Thursday, and you're welcome to hang out. I'm just going to wrap up the show here in just a minute with my last bit about goal setting. So thank you very much. I appreciate you.
Thanks, Ed.
See ya. All right, cool. So, hey, just like I said, it's like when you're in an F-18, you got the plan, you got the brief, and then you take off and people start shooting. And when people start shooting, the plan goes flying out the window. So Alicia will tell you what I think it was Mike Tyson who said this. I think it was him, but she'll tell you this is true. Everybody has a plan until they get punched. Okay. So the internet comes and goes, and oh well. And you know what is interesting? This is the 119th show. I think it's 118th maybe. We have had one internet issues. Think about this in 119 episodes. I am so thankful for that. And you want to talk about focusing on the things that you do have? I'm very thankful that we've had great internet for all these shows. Okay. So I'm going to wrap up the goal setting stuff. Thank you, Diana, for your awesome comment. You have a beautiful spirit as well. Okay. You're going to make everybody, I'm back to your list. You're going to give everybody a 1, a 2, and a 3. 3s are beautiful people that you love to spend time with. 2s are neutral, no big deal. But now you got your number 1s. Let's talk about those number 1s for a second. Those number 1s are taking away life from you. Those number 1s are bringing you down. You don't, let me listen to what I'm about to say. You don't owe them anything. Did you catch what I just said? There is a verse in the New Testament that says, owe nothing to anyone except love. Owe nothing to anyone except love. You don't owe them time. You don't owe them energy. You just owe them love. And sometimes that love comes in the form of letting them go. Sometimes it's a kid that's been around too long that you need to let live your life. Sometimes it's a parent that you need to redefine a relationship with. I'm going to talk about that in a second, but either way, those people need to have less of a hold on your life. With the number 1s, you have 2 choices. Some people think you have 3. The third choice you don't have is to leave the relationship the way it is. It's not a choice. You can either eliminate them. By the way, when I say eliminate, I don't mean like the mob. Okay. I just mean like they're not supposed to be in your life anymore. Or you can RTR them. RTR stands redefine the relationship. RTR. So let's just say it's an acquaintance, somebody that used to drink beer with or whatever. Well, you just don't have to reach out to them anymore. You don't have to reply to them. That's no big deal. Like if they're just not good for you, then and they're in that sphere, then just don't. It's fine. No big deal. But if they're in here, like let's say they're a family member, and you're like, man, there's no way, Ed. I'm going to see them at Thanksgiving. Well, it's time to have a conversation. The conversation is very simple, by the way. You just say, hey, number 1, I just realized that it's not healthy for me right now to have you around. There's a few examples I can give you, but our relationship is an unhealthy relationship. And I just wanted to tell you because I care about you and I want this to be a good relationship, but the way that you're treating me is not acceptable. And I just wanted to talk about that. Let me look at you in the eye and just say 99% of the time when you have that conversation, that person will immediately be like, I know. Whatever. I'm serious. 91% of the people will fight back. Okay. They can move along. Those 99%, the moment you tell them what's what, they know what's what. Okay. People know what's what. The second thing that's going to happen when you have that conversation is you're going to feel a lot better. All that power is going to come back into your body. And again, if you want more detail on that, the website or the book is 21 Day Miracle. I'm just talking about the relationship section of that. The truth is you're giving your strength away to people who are taking it away gladly. And sometimes some little boundaries will help you do that because look, you have a mission to accomplish in the world. You've got a passion to do something and you can't have it with people like that. Now, the last step is actually really exciting, which is this. Figure out what you want to accomplish in the world and go find people who are either doing that or on their way to doing that. I mean, like when I got serious about wanting to change this country, about wanting to change the nation, man, you know what? I started finding people around my network who knew people who were doing that. Next thing you know, I'm sitting in briefings in Congress. Okay? You can find those people when you have a vision for what you're trying to do. Try to find people who are going in the direction that you're going. One of my just most fascinating things has been when you think about something you want to do, all of a sudden you start to see connections and relationships. And I'll tell you, there's some very powerful people in Washington that I know now. Good people too, by the way, who I know now simply because I was connected already to the right person and I ended up putting those things together. You have a mission or a story or a vision and it's going to change the world and you're going to change the world. And you can do that when you connect to the right people. Okay. So big picture stuff. For those of you who just joined me, our interview today with Alicia, we talked a little bit about it, but we're going to actually knock it out next week. She and I, in the meantime, I was talking about how to goal accomplish, not goal setting, but a goal accomplishing. And I started last week with focusing on what you have. And I went into this week into training your brain. Okay. So thank you for your patience. Thank you for your time with me today. Don't forget this Thursday, I got James Donaldson, the big man, coming on the show. We're going to talk about how to go big. James, not only a former NBA player, about 15 seasons, if I got that right, but also a great entrepreneur and just a really good guy with a vision for changing his world as well, or our world as well. So don't miss the show this week. Don't forget, I love you and I like you, and you're going to change the world. Thank you, Barry, for your awesome comment. Man. Hey, you know what? Sometimes you just go into war and missiles start flying, but you always make it back. I will talk to you soon. EdTalks Live is out.